So, you want to hear something kind of embarrassing? I was putting the finishing touches on Monday's video, 7 Shocking Wrestling Love Triangles, when it hit me, I have absolutely done this video before. Now, obviously I'll redo popular topics but use different entries, but I had done almost this exact video, except it was called Unbelievable WWE Affairs Exposed. Well, not exact, but like 3 of the 7 stories were the same topics. Anyway, not cool. So, hopefully you'll forgive me for recycling the same topic, because when it comes to professional wrestling, I'm definitely not the only person guilty of this. I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling. Let's take a look at 7 times the WWE recycled the same storyline. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and mandible claw that notification bell. Number 1. Double Knockout. Before he reduced himself into getting into tickle fights with Logan Paul's brother on Netflix, Mike Tyson truly was the baddest man on the planet. Bursting onto the scene as a teenager, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at just 20 years old. Dismantling opponents with ruthless efficiency, his explosive knockouts often came within the first few rounds, leaving rivals overwhelmed and audiences both in awe of his raw physicality and kind of pissed off that they paid full price for a pay-per-view that was comically short. At his peak, he was more than a fighter, he was an unstoppable phenomenon, feared by even the most seasoned heavyweights. All of this made him an absolute star in the late 80s and early 90s, with him appearing in Diet Pepsi ads and being the face of the greatest video game of all time, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Next up was an appearance with the WWE and, if you believe Hulk Hogan, and we don't always recommend you do that, a potential matchup where Tyson would square off against the Hulkster in the ring. The setup was an episode of the main event where Tyson would serve as a special guest referee for a bout between Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage. But a funny thing happened on the way to primetime NBC. Mike Tyson got knocked out by a 42-1 underdog known as James Buster Douglas. Mike Tyson's shocking loss to Douglas on February 11, 1990 was a result of a combination of overconfidence, lack of preparation, and an inspired performance by Douglas. Tyson, who had steamrolled through the heavyweight division, entered the fight in poor condition, reportedly neglecting training and underestimating his opponent. Meanwhile, Douglas fought with incredible determination, fueled by personal tragedy after losing his mother just weeks before the fight. He executed a perfect game plan using his reach and movement to keep Tyson at bay, and eventually capitalized in the 10th round with a brutal and shocking knockout. Tyson's defeat wasn't just a fluke, it was a lesson in the importance of discipline, preparation, and resilience in boxing. So, Tyson was out and Douglas was in. During the WWE bout, the in-ring referee would get knocked out, and Douglas would have to slide into the ring to make the count for Hulk Hogan. An enraged Savage would get in Douglas's face and challenge him to a fight. Buster would have enough of Savage's shenanigans and knock him out. Although, if you go back and rewatch it, the first punch is such a whiff that Savage has to tell him to do it again. Fast forward 8 years to the main event of WrestleMania 14, and you've got an eerily similar situation. In the main event title match between Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin, referee Mike Chioda gets squished in the corner. After a Stone Cold Stunner, Mike Tyson, the special guest referee, slides in and administers the 3 count. An enraged Michaels gets in his face, and second verse, same as the first. Number 2. Title Trouble. We've said this before, but we are total belt marks here at 7 Wrestling. We have a few right here at our desk, the best of all time, of course, being the classic Intercontinental title. I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Nowadays, if you want a cool belt, all you need is some money and the ability to go to WWEshop.com. They've got any belt you could possibly ever want, but when I was a kid, there was no way to get anything close to the real deal. So you could imagine how much it hurt my little Mountain Dew addicted heart when I tuned into the November 25th, 1989 episode of Saturday Night's Main Event and saw the Genius defeat Hulk Hogan by countout. Immediately afterwards, Mr. Perfect ran to the back with the Hulkster's WWE title. The next time we'd see Mr. Perfect, he'd be right in the middle of this atrocity, smashing the WWE Championship to bits with a hammer. I was aghast, and Hogan felt me. He too was disheartened by this extreme action Mr. Perfect felt he needed to do to get attention. But it was not the first time a heel had gone to such great lengths to get under the skin of the champion. After losing the WWF Championship to Bob Backlund in 1978, superstar Billy Graham never let go of his resentment. Years later, in 1982, in a symbolic act of defiance and rage, Graham took matters into his own hands. In a memorable and shocking moment, he seized Backlund's WWF title belt and destroyed it, smashing and defacing the championship as a statement against both his former rival and the organization that had sidelined him. Graham tore the plates from the leather strap and then viciously slammed the belt against the concrete floor, shattering it further. Backlund, battered and devastated, crawled towards his destroyed championship, his emotions overwhelming him. Nearly in tears, he had to be comforted by his manager, Arnold Scarlett. Both Perfect and Graham received title matches for their heinous acts, but neither was able to claim the gold. Number 3. Urine for a rerun. Shawn Michaels and Jeff Hardy have quite a bit in common. They're two of the most charismatic and influential wrestlers in WWE history. Both are known for their high-flying, risk-taking in-ring styles, captivating audiences with their daring aerial maneuvers. Both superstars possess undeniable showmanship, with Michaels' Heartbreak Kid persona making him a standout performer, while Hardy's enigmatic charisma as well as the finger-pointing dance gets the fans up out of their seats. Their ability to tell compelling stories throughout their matches and their connection with the fans have cemented their legacies as two of the most legendary and influential wrestlers of their respective eras. They also share a reputation for having well-documented battles with drugs and alcohol addiction, which impacted their careers in different ways. Michaels, during the height of his success in the 90s, developed substance abuse issues that contributed to backstage conflicts and nearly derailed his career. However, after suffering a severe back injury and taking time away from wrestling, he found faith and made a dramatic personal transformation, returning in the early 2000s as a born-again Christian and maintaining a clean lifestyle ever since. Hardy, on the other hand, has had a more tumultuous battle with addiction, with multiple arrests and suspensions due to substance-related issues. Despite numerous attempts at recovery, his struggles have persisted over the years, occasionally leading to legal troubles and departures from major wrestling promotions. While both men overcame their demons at different points, Michaels was able to sustain long-term sobriety, whereas Hardy has continued to face challenges in maintaining a stable, drug-free life. All of these things led to both men performing an almost identical segment 14 years apart. The first iteration of this story took place on the March 3, 2006 episode of Monday Night Raw, where Vince and Shane McMahon alluded to Shawn's past addictions and insisted he take a urine test to prove he was clean in the build-up to Shawn and Vince squaring off at WrestleMania 22. And instead of this taking place backstage, in a restroom, like every drug test since the beginning of time, this was done in the ring behind a little curtain. Fast forward 14 years to the June 12, 2020 episode of SmackDown, and Sheamus is insisting Jeff Hardy do the exact same thing before he signs to face him at Backlash. Now, there's a rule about cakes in wrestling. Inevitably, they'll end up in someone's face. Apparently, the same rule holds for large beakers of urine, and wow, I'm not an expert, but that seems like an awful lot of fluid. Then the inevitable happens. Oh, those poor security guards. They didn't deserve that. Maybe the moral of the story is that if Sheamus knew his wrestling history, he'd know what he was about to experience. Or maybe he's into it. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. Kicker is that both Michaels and Hardy use the exact same line before delivering the final splash. It's better to be pissed off than pissed on. Yeah, they just Control-C, Control-V that whole script. Number 4. Who was that masked man? In 2003, Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon reignited their real-life tension in a storyline where McMahon claimed credit for creating Hulkamania and vowed to end it. This culminated in a bloody street fight at WrestleMania 19, which the Hulkster won. However, McMahon was not done with him. After WrestleMania, McMahon fired Hogan from the WWE, but soon after, vignettes aired teasing the debut of a masked superstar named Mr. America, who looked and sounded exactly like Hulk Hogan, but they all insisted he was a different person. This led to all kinds of hilarious hijinks where McMahon would do everything he could to prove that Mr. America was in fact the Hulkster, but kept getting thwarted along the way. The highlight of this was clearly the lie detector segment where Hogan, Mr. America, convinced McMahon to hook himself up to the machine, and we learned that McMahon was the biggest asshole on the face of the earth, and that he's a sick, perverted, power-hungry freak. Wow, those things really work. Storyline was cut short when Hogan had real-life contract disputes with the WWE. After Madison Square Garden's June 26, 2003 SmackDown taping, he legitimately left the company. WWE resolved the storyline by having McMahon fire Mr. America on screen after showing footage of him taking off his mask, which was actually just Hogan waving to fans after the show. But what's interesting about this is there is a long history of good guys ending up on the wrong end of a loser leaves town match and then returning as a poorly disguised wrestler to annoy the bad guys. In the WWE in 1986, after being storyline suspended by Jack Tunney for missing scheduled matches, Andre the Giant mysteriously disappeared from television only to resurface soon under a mask as Giant Machine. A member of the newly formed Machines tag team, despite his unmistakable size, voice, and mannerisms, Andre and his allies insisted he was not the same man, much to the frustration of Bobby the Brain Heenan, who lobbied unsuccessfully to have him banned. In WCW, a mysterious Midnight Rider came in to fight the Horsemen while Dusty Rhodes was off serving a suspension. The Yellow Dog caused trouble for Barry Windham after he defeated Brian Pillman in a Loser Leaves Town match. And most recently, after John Cena was fired by WWE, who would show up at house shows to cover his dates? Juan Cena. Juan Cena. Number 5, Salmon Trap. We all love stories where talent just automatically gets it. Kurt Angle's a great example of this. He debuted at the Survivor Series in 1999 and was defending the world title on the same show a year later. Tiffany Stratton wasn't on the main roster for a calendar year before she won the women's title, and now she's set to lose to Charlotte Flair in a big match at WrestleMania. And the opposite of that phenomena has got to be Mark Henry. Mark Henry's early years in the WWE were filled with struggles as he transitioned from powerlifting to professional wrestling. Signing in 1996 to a massive 10-year contract after completing the Olympics, Henry was immediately pushed as the world's strongest man, but he had a rough start in the ring due to his inexperience. His initial matches were clunky, and despite his impressive strength, he struggled to connect with the fans. WWE tried different gimmicks to make him stand out, including placing him in the Nation of Domination alongside The Rock and Farouk, but he often felt like the weak link. His awkward promos and lack of in-ring polish led to him being sent back to developmental multiple times. Fans and even fellow wrestlers doubted whether he would ever succeed, and injuries only added to his difficulties. It was even reported that Vince McMahon tried to get Mark Henry to quit the WWE by saddling him with an embarrassing sex addict gimmick. As part of this storyline, Henry became Sexual Chocolate, a character obsessed with romance and outrageous sexual encounters. WWE put him in bizarre angles, including a relationship with Mae Young, who became pregnant and gave birth to a hand. However, instead of quitting, Henry kept training, improving his craft, and eventually overcame these early struggles to become one of the WWE's most dominant and respected big men. And on the June 17, 2013 episode of Monday Night Raw, when he came out to tell the world that he was retiring, you couldn't help but be moved as he discussed his struggles, his successes, and his desire to spend more time with his family. With tears rolling down our face as we watched as John Cena raised Henry's hand in a show of respect, just to have Henry absolutely wreck the former Doctor of Thugonomics with the world's strongest slam. Oh, he got us. Oh, that big, beautiful, salmon-jacketed bastard got us. It was awesome. Hook, line, and sinker. But you couldn't even be mad at him. So, when AJ Styles invited Cody Rhodes to the ring on the May 31st, 2024 episode of SmackDown, we were a bit wary. After all, he was wearing a jacket with a very soothing color. Yes, it looked like the Phenomenal One was calling it a career, and it didn't help matters when Cody started to get all misty, although in our defense, Cody does get teary-eyed quite frequently. Oh, damn it. Hook, line, and sinker again. Number 6. Attraction Distraction. I've told this story here before, but for the purposes of this entry, it bears repeating. I became a wrestling fan in the summer of 1988. My next door neighbor started making me watch WWE Superstars with him. Big storyline leading up to the first ever SummerSlam pay-per-view was the fact that the Mega Powers, made up of Hulk Hogan and the then WWE champion Macho Man Randy Savage, were going to be squaring off against the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. All this would be under the watchful eye of special guest referee Jesse the Body Ventura, and when I saw Ted DiBiase blatantly bribing the assigned official on an episode of the Brother Love Show, I had to know if the Mega Powers were going to be able to overcome this injustice. So, I ordered my first ever pay-per-view, and in the main event, the Macho Man's manager, and as far as I was concerned, the most beautiful woman in the world, Miss Elizabeth, removed her skirt to reveal a pair of skimpy bikini bottoms. Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant were so intoxicated by this majestic view that they were easy pickings for an elbow drop and a leg drop. A biased official be damned. Now, I have two big thoughts coming out of this. First, Elizabeth doesn't get the credit she deserves for a picture-perfect toss of that skirt into Ted DiBiase's face. And two, I was hooked. Wrestling fan for life, independent pro wrestler in my college days, and now, 30 plus years later, you're watching this. Circle of life, Hakuna Matata. This moment would become a full-blown gimmick when they decided to have Deborah's whole thing being that she'd get on the apron and open her blazer to distract Jeff Jarrett's opponents. And it almost always worked. You'd think the guys would be able to prepare for it after like the 100th time. You're like, hey, Steve Blackman, I know you're facing Jeff Jarrett tonight. Just a heads up, his manager is going to flash her goods. Try to stay focused. But every now and then, things will get even more salacious than that. In particular, in the 1997, the WWE launched a new, edgier program called Shotgun Saturday Night. The original gimmick for this program was more adult content shot from non-conventional venues such as the All-Star Cafe in Times Square and New York's Penn Station. The debut took place at the Mirage nightclub in Manhattan on January 4th, 1997, and to really set the tone for the anything-can-happen mood they were trying to portray, Marlena stole a page out of Miss Elizabeth's handbook and flashed a little more than her bikini bottoms. During a bout between Goldust and the Sultan, Marlena hopped up onto the apron and with her back turned to the camera, show off her golden globes. And look at Bob Backlund trying to cover her up. It's like, oh no, the Sultan's only weakness, boobs. 7 years later, Miss Jackie would use a similar spot to secure a win for her stylist Rico. Funny how those cameras are always in the worst possible places. Number 7. Mirror Scrimmage. It's very common in entertainment for a villain to just be like a different version of the hero. Bizarro is an imperfect clone of Superman. Owlman is the evil counterpart of Batman from Earth 3. My computer kept trying to correct Owlman to Oilman, although Oilman would be a great Batman villain too. Skeletor made an evil robot version of He-Man that was ingeniously named Faker. Heck, the main villain in like every Marvel movie is the same as the hero. Iron Man had Ironmonger, Hulk had Abomination, Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket, Black Panther and Killmonger, Captain America and Red Skull took the same super soldier serum. Wow, that's tough to say fast. Same super soldier serum, same super soldier serum. So it isn't shocking when the WWE tries to do the same thing. The WWE title match at the 1994 Royal Rumble had possibly the dumbest ending of all time. Yokozuna and The Undertaker were having themselves a lovely little casket match when like 10 dudes came out to help Yokozuna beat up the dead man. Yoko would bonk Taker with the sacred urn, which would cause an eerie mist to emerge from The Undertaker's favorite trinket. Then, all those guys would stuff Taker in a casket, which is actually kind of genius. Also, Yoko would give us a fun little Easter egg where he would show off his Samoan heritage. As they carted him to the back, the lights would go out, and The Undertaker would magically float out of the Titantron and into the heavens. I warned you it was dumb. We wouldn't see the dead man until later that summer when he'd show up at the side of the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. But somehow, over the course of his reincarnation, he shrunk a few inches and had less convincing tattoos. That's right, it's the Underfaker, portrayed by future disciple of the Apocalypse Brian Lee. The real Undertaker would return at SummerSlam to best his doppelganger, but this time with a new purple color scheme. Fun little aside to the story is that the match that preceded this train wreck was the amazing Bret Hart versus Owen Hart cage match. Well, apparently that match went too long and it cut into Taker's time, and he was not happy about it. Not that I can imagine more time making an Undertaker versus Bryan Lee match any better. That night at SummerSlam would be the last time we'd see the Undertaker, but it certainly wasn't the last time the WWE would try this trope. We had an earlier version of Kane attacking the current Kane, Sin Cara faced off against Sin Cara Negro, and even Goldberg got to face off against Gillberg. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other recycled WWE storylines? If so, please leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please do me a solid and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and choke slam that notification bell. Till next time, I'm Singer Siete for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.